The humanism that I would put into the universe is that those of us who are not motivated by fear, we have to leverage our own compassion somehow for the people who are. And and understand that they just come from a different place than we do. They're coming at this from a completely different reality. Like, we really do live in two different realities.
Perhaps I could use this as an excuse to go to those far-off planets with little polka-dotted people if necessary, and be able to talk about love, war, nature, God, sex, all those things that go to make up the excitement of the human condition.
I'm Captain James Kirk.
Captain Kirk.
Kirk of the Starship Enterprise.
And the ineluctable Mr. Spock.
Mr. Spock, my first officer.
Captain Dr. Spock of...
I can't imagine.
Kirk of the Starship Enterprise.
Did I ever tell you about the time I saved Captain Kirk's life?
Kirk of the Starship Enterprise.
What a blessing to be able to live one's life over again. If the life you've led has left you unfulfilled.
Welcome aboard, and welcome to Humanist Trek. It's a Star Trek podcast about the humanism in Star Trek. I'm Sarah Ray.
And I'm Allie Ashmead.
Summer's going to be busy. I got a lot of shit coming up, and we have some stuff coming up too.
Yeah, we do.
So first, the next couple of weeks, my sister is driving my mom out here for a visit. They'll be here for a week, so that'll be fun. For those of you who may just be tuning in, my father passed away not too long ago, a few months ago. And so my mom is trying to, struggling to keep some sense of normalcy. And a big part of their normal was traveling a lot. They went to Florida every year for a couple months, and then they'd come out here with their camper and visit us. And so now that the camper driver is not here, my sister who still lives, in the same town that my mom lives in. The town we all grew up in.
Right.
So she's going to bring mom out here, and we're going to spend some time in the mountains and do some family shit together. It's going to be really nice. And then not long after that, we're going to be prepping to go to Fort Collins for the Fort Collins Comic-Con. And big announcement, drum roll please. We have been confirmed for a panel at Fort Collins Comic-Con.
That's going to be so cool. It's terrifying, too. These always freak me out, but it'll be fun.
Here's the great thing about this. We workshop this through all of these littler conventions. And then if we ever make it on the circuit, if we ever go out and if we become professional podcasters, we could take this on the road. But this is nice because it gives us, some time to...
We're practicing
to work it out. Yeah. We are building the ship as we're flying it. That applies to the podcast and the panel and
pretty much.
I don't know what else we're going to be doing. I talked to the organizer and was like, "Hey man, we're going to be there the whole weekend. We'll do whatever you need us to do. Like if you got a podcast room doing live shows, we'll do one of those. If you got a whatever, like we're happy to do whatever you need."
Yeah, like if they need us to moderate a panel, we could do that too.
Sign me up. So we're going to be doing another panel on the humanism in Star Trek, and we're thinking, we've kicked this out to the listeners. What do you want to hear? What would you find interesting to hear us talk about for 45 minutes to an hour at a convention? Maybe it's, and we got some really great responses back already from Bruce specifically. Who gave us some really good ideas. Do we pick like one particular topic that's a strong humanist theme or value and talk about that one specific thing, bringing in examples from a bunch of different episodes? Or do we build on the one that we did at the last con that we did this at and just, refine that one? Or do we strike out and do something completely different? So if you have ideas, we would love to hear them. You can shoot us an email or hit us up on the social medias, or you can call that number that we have that nobody ever uses.
Nobody uses a phone anymore.
I know.
Nobody calls anyone.
But it's 920-550-TREK. That's 920-550-8735. If you want to, you can text that number. It comes right to my phone, or you can call leave a voicemail if you want. I don't answer it. It's not like a you can call and talk to me for a little while. That's not what we're doing here. So let's talk just briefly about what has been announced for Fort Collins already.
Okay.
There's not a lot of Trek represented yet. Now, of course, they're still updating the website as they make these announcements, but there will be one, Dr. Aaron McDonald,
Yay!
who by that point will have been a friend of the show. Here's another breaking announcement. Dr. Erin Mack has agreed to be a guest on the Humanist Trek show. So she's going to be joining us for an upcoming episode. We're thinking there's a particular episode of the animated series that I need to go watch ahead now, because she was like, I very much like this episode and would love to come on and talk to you about this episode.
Okay.
So,
Cool.
yeah. So I got to see if I
watch
can.
ahead and
Yeah. So we'll talk to her about all of those things, and maybe we'll be able to hook up at the con too. And then there's a booth called Ask a Scientist.
Is that her booth or no?
No, she is doing, I don't know if it says all the things that she's doing, but here's what her blurb says. Erin McDonald has a PhD in astrophysics and is a writer, speaker, producer, and science advisor, currently the official science advisor for the Star Trek franchise. She has also voiced her fictional counterpart, Lieutenant Commander Aaron McDonald, in Star Trek Prodigy and the video game Star Trek Online. She's also the founder and CEO of Spacetime Productions, a production company dedicated to lifting marginalized voices and providing opportunity in traditionally underrepresented genre stories.
Love it.
She has also authored the Audible original, The Science of Sci-Fi, in collaboration with The Great Courses. Oh, do you remember when that was a thing? All the podcasters used to simp for The Great Courses Plus. They were a big podcast advertiser back in the day.
Oh.
And there's a baby board book that she has produced called Star Trek, My First Book of Space.
Oh.
Right? I love it.
I love it.
So then when I search for Trek, the other person that comes up is one of these scientists at the Ask a Scientist booth. And there's like 4 or 5 people who are on here for this booth. And this one is Dr. Michael L. Wong, a Carnegie postdoctoral fellow at the Carnegie Institution for Science's Earth and Planets Laboratory, studying planetary atmospheres, habitability, biosignatures, and the emergence of life. In his spare time, he hosts a podcast called Strange New Worlds, which examines science, technology, and culture through the lens of Star Trek.
Cool.
So we should totally connect with him too.
Yeah.
While we're there. Of course, there's lots of cosplay guests and all of that kind of stuff. You know, the vendor's room, the toys, the collectibles, all of that good stuff. There is a media and podcasters category here on their website, which
Okay, but what does that mean?
right. It doesn't really give me a lot of detail. Like, are these people doing live stuff during the thing? Again, their website is a work in progress. So in 3 days, tickets go on sale for Fort Collins Comic-Con, and it's FOCO Comic-Con. FOCOComicCon.com. And yeah, so we'd love to see you there. More on that when we know more.
Yeah, cool.
Okay.
I'm excited. We have to think about how we're gonna dress up. Are we
That's
doing
true.
Are we doing the planetarium again?
I need some seamstress help. I need some sewing help. Because, you know, it has the little hook and loop thing on the back up of the neck, and that fucking popped out. So I need to sew that back together somehow.
Needle and thread.
Yeah.
That should be it.
Yeah, and the time to do it. That's the hard part.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all I have is that and my TOS uniform.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to. I need a new uniform, so maybe I'll do disco.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah, I need a disco uniform. Okay, how do we turn the car around towards this crazy ass episode?
Yo no sé. Yo no sé. ¿Tú me gas? ¿Me gas tú? I swear it's Spanish.
Well, como se dice en español, it's Star Trek, the animated series, season 1, episode 8, The Magicks of Megas 2.
Sir, contact with an object. It's moving toward us. No visual contact yet.
Deflector is full intensity. Mr. Sulu. Yes, Captain. Anything on your scanners?
It's coming at light speed.
Collision course. Visual contact. Anything, over.
All wavelengths dominated by ionization effects, sir.
All engines full stop.
Last week, we were at the edge of the galaxy. This week, we're at the center. Man, they're covering some ground in this fucking series. The Enterprise is all over the damn place.
So they're going to the center of the galaxy.
Uh-huh.
And his captain's log at the beginning says that scientists have theorized that our galaxy was created from a great explosion. And then the scientists are thinking that the center of the galaxy might still be creating new matter. So that's what they're going to investigate.
And I highly recommend that you watch this episode right now. Pause us, walk, don't run, go to your Paramount Plus, watch this episode, because who knows, another 4 years of science denialism in the highest office in our land, and this episode might be banned for believing in the Big Bang Theory.
True. But we all know now that the center of every galaxy, or just about every galaxy, is a black hole. It's not making stuff. It's pulling stuff in, you know?
And furthermore, again, we're podcasters, not astrophysicists.
Right.
But if we're talking about the Big Bang, aren't we talking about the creation of the universe, not the galaxy? So wouldn't the central point be the center of the universe, not the center of the Milky Way? Just a cartoon, correct. Sarah. Just a cartoon.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
But yeah, they kept saying, oh, the center of the galaxy and the explosion and the... But no, that's not... Did our understanding of this change, or did they get this wrong? That's the question.
I'm wondering, did we not know back then in the 70s? Sure, yeah, we knew. We knew that there were more than one galaxy and that we were one of millions of galaxies.
Yellow alert, deflectors up, and Sulu's draining the power, trying to stay in one spot, and Spock begins charting the area. As McCoy arrives on the bridge, all, what the fuck, you guys? Suddenly, Sulu reports that they're being pulled in, and he's already at warp 6, trying to fight against the pull. Spock says this is some kind of matter-energy whirlwind.
Hello, it's a black hole. You're going towards a black hole. But the graphics make it look like there's actually some sort of storm and there's wind. And I'm thinking there's no wind in space. There's no weather in space. But maybe I'm wrong.
So they can't break free, so they're going to drive straight into the storm and hope that it's calm at the center like a hurricane. Again, based on what available evidence? Okay.
I know. But you said you liked this episode.
I do like this episode. During this buildup, we see the bridge crew being thrown out of their chairs, officers falling down in the hallways, engineers holding onto ladders. So Spock has to drag himself up off the floor to work the controls. And finally, they end up at the center of this storm. Scotty reports that any damage they sustained can be repaired, and Spock is just in heaven. This is a scientist's wet dream, but not a medic's, and McCoy is proudly scared to bits. So they're going to ride the storm wherever, which might be into the center of all things. And the Enterprise glows bright yellow, disappearing from normal space and reappearing somewhere else. And Spock explains they are no longer in time and space as we understand it.
Subspace radio is dead. The ship's chronometers, basically the clock, is dead, which makes, whatever. And Spock says the natural laws of our universe don't operate here. So that, I guess, it causes clocks to stop. But it also causes the ship's life support to fail as well. So they're starting to run out of oxygen and starting to pass out.
It's like subspace radio is dead, ship's chronometer stopped, engines are fading out, whatever that means. Dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
Enough, I get the point.
What is that? I have heard that before.
It's from Ghostbusters.
Okay.
You've heard it on this show before.
I know I have. That's what I mean. I've heard you say it.
No.
But yeah, all the systems are dead and everybody's starting to pass out because they ain't got no oxygen.
And then they start seeing shit. A goat man appears.
It's Tumnus. It's Tumnus from The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, what the of all the so yeah, he's a goat man with horns and like what do they call it? The half man, half goat?
Man bear
thing?
goat.
Man bear goat. Yeah.
Because
it's like one of the mythical creatures. It's not a centaur because that's
fawn.
A horse. Fawn.
A fawn, yeah.
But this guy, this goat man, appears and he's so cheerful. He's like, humans, can't you do anything right? As they're suffocating. And he does something. He says like a magic word. Is that what he said? Was that what that was?
Radamanthus. Yeah,
and then
whatever that is.
Suddenly now they're fine. The Enterprise is back into normal space and they're orbiting some pink red striped planet. But there's a planet in the center of the galaxy. I'm so confused.
Hidden somewhere, somehow? Yeah. So this guy is very Satan-like, and his name is even Lucian. So there's a lot of like satanic imagery here. And
that was the first thing I thought. Lucian.
Yep. He shows up and he's like, hi, I'm here to apply for the role of chaplain in the elementary school in Florida. I understand that you're hiring those now. You can't discriminate against my religion, so you have to take Satanists too. Careful what you wish for.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, he's voiced by Jimmy Doohan.
Mm-hmm.
Spock is still pretty skeptical about all of this stuff, though. And then Lucian says, "Welcome. I knew eventually humans would come searching for me." And he insists on continuing this elsewhere. And KSM disappear, leaving Uhura, Sulu, and Eric's in shock.
He's yoinked them from the bridge to some planets, I guess the pink stripe planet surfaced.
And right away, McCoy looks at Kirk and he's all like wavy and shit. So McCoy rubs his eyes a few times and Kirk's like,
back in the 60s, he was part of the free speech movement at Berkeley. I think he did a little too much LDS.
So they talk Lucian into fixing their corporeal bodies, but not without some shit talking from Spock and McCoy, of course.
Yeah. He's just basically doing a bunch of magic as they're talking. He first makes McCoy and Spock turn them into a smaller version of a goat man and some sort of spinning top.
What I don't know what the symbolization of the spinning top is for. Is that
I don't know.
Something to do with Lucifer, Satan?
No.
Lucian? Any of that?
I don't know that I know of. But he says something like children will play. And then he yoinks them back to normal, and then now they're in a different woodland glade surrounded by trees, and he's like, is this better?
So was that whole thing just like a demonstration of his powers? Is that why we did all that?
I think.
Yeah.
He's changing their surroundings. He's changing things to things. And yeah, so I don't know. But now that they're in a world that's more to their liking and more that they're familiar with, he welcomes them to Megastu. And I'm going to say it in a Spanish accent because it sounds Spanish. Megastu. And Kirk is like, what exactly is Megastu? And it is apparently a world that has its own rules that are quite different from their universe.
So we're in a different universe.
But
or are we outside the universe? Are we out?
But they're supposed to be at the middle of the their galaxy, not in another universe. I'm so confused. But apparently, because he snaps his fingers and now they're in a different place, a meadow by a lake, and he says, our universe operates by what you call magic. So he keeps, I think they're using the wrong term, galaxy universe.
Yeah, for sure. The magic tricks start up again as he snaps and makes an apple appear in each hand, and he chucks one of those at McCoy, and McCoy thinks this is all just his imagination. He's like, I swear to God, if a fucking white rabbit comes hopping around the corner, you guys, I swear to God, I am out of here.
I'm leaving.
It was just my imagination.
Lucian insists this is all real. Here in this universe, the people turn to sorcerers for their needs. And there's another blink and you missed it mention of beauty and how women here stay as young and beautiful as they want by using magic. And that's it. That's all you get. It's TAS. We got other shit to do. But
Right.
There was a thought there, that a thread that could have been pulled on.
They don't need to have the misogyny. I will say there isn't as much misogyny in TAS as there would normally be, like in TOS. But yeah, so Lucian sounds sort of like he's selling stuff. You know, he's like, "What do you need? Do you need a room? You need a castle? You need a stable? Stop in at your friendly sorcerer's contractor and let him do the work." And he could have had a commercial.
Spock runs this through his logic brain and decides that this makes sense. If this galactic creation point exists, it would have to extend beyond time and space into some other dimension where logic works differently. Then Lucian says something that again suggests he has encountered humans before. Kirk's like, okay, what gives? You keep talking like you know us. How? And this sets off an exposition dump. Megas 2 is populated by these magician people, each a specialist in their own kind of magic, except for Lucian, who is something of a generalist. And they went on a summer vacation into the Prime universe one time and found themselves on Earth, where they became advisors to Earth people. Is this another one of those, what if what we thought were gods were actually aliens episode? That's what we're doing.
Ancient aliens! Ancient aliens. Yeah, that sounds like what it was. Basically, they started advising humans. They helped our ancestors and drew on the power that they left behind in their own universe, and they made it work in our world, or Kirk's world. But then they had to leave, but Lucian didn't want to leave. For some reason, he had a love for humans, and he didn't want to leave. And he fought, but he had to leave anyway.
And they're not quite prepared to explain why they had to leave just yet. Only that they had to leave. And speaking of leaving, Lucian flies up into the air for some reason, and then back down. And then, like the dude at the party who's the first one to notice the flashing red and blue lights, he's like,
oh shit, they're coming.
You guys gotta go. You gotta get out of here. Don't let them see you.
Yep. And he immediately yoinks them back to the bridge, and he tells them, don't give away your presence. Next thing you know, they're back on the bridge, and they're like, to who? What are you talking about? They don't even know what that meant.
But they decide that Lucian must be hiding them from the other Megans. Whatever.
like Meghan Markle's? Like the Megans?
The Megans. He's even put up some kind of cloud between the planet and the Enterprise. So we've got to figure out why they need to be hidden and what might happen if they're found out. Kirk wants weapons, but Scotty says nothing works except life support, and even he doesn't even understand how that's working. Then there's this long cross dissolve between Kirk, hand contemplatively on his chin, and Spock drawing on the floor. And I went down an occult rabbit hole here.
He's drawing a pentagram on the floor. Well, isn't that what it is? It's a sort of pentagram, penta something.
So yes. So here's what I learned. Here's my book report on the occult. So there is a difference between a pentagram and a pentacle.
Mm-hmm.
The main difference being that the pentagram is just the 5-pointed star, representing the 5 elements. And the pentacle has a circle around the star connecting all of the points, and that represents balance and harmony.
Mm.
But this thing
that doesn't sound
Spock,
so bad.
No. This thing Spock is drawing, though, isn't quite either of those. It's like the star, but it's inside a pentagon, like straight lines, not a circle. And so I didn't see if that meant anything specific, or maybe they did that so as not to invoke some stupid superstition in the audience or something. I don't know. I think drawing the pentagram enough, but anyway.
Yeah, back then, yeah. So Spock's getting this Ouija board out too. Yeah. But for some reason, he thinks to see if he can conjure up some magic.
Do you remember that scene in The Craft where the girls get together and they try to do light as a feather, stiff as a board, light as a feather, stiff as a board, and they lift the girl up? You don't remember that?
Vaguely.
That's Spock in this scene. He's like,
He-
this universe uses different logic, so it's logical that I can do magic.
Yep. And he stands on the little penta whatever.
He's like,
penta shape.
He's like, I am Spock. I call to the guardians of the watchtowers of the East or whatever. I need to watch that. I love that movie so much. I need to watch
The
it.
Craft?
Yes.
I haven't seen it in so long. I don't remember.
I think that was my lesbian awakening, to be honest.
I see. So he decides he's going to stand on the pentagram thing and he's going to try to move a chess piece from across the room. He holds out his hands and he says something like, may the energy of the universe be the power in me.
Mecca like a high, mecca high neo.
It doesn't work at first, but he keeps doing it. And then he says, power of the universe, enter my being.
Oh my.
He's like, I know I can. I believe I can. And then he starts glowing. And then the chess piece moves.
So now we need to set up a chess match between Spock the magician and Charlie X. A quick captain's log. Kirk says that in this universe, it appears that belief is as potent a force as energy and matter are in our own.
Oh, no.
And this is an interesting thought exercise because obviously my mind goes straight to theistic religious belief.
Mine too.
So belief without evidence. No matter or energy involved as far as our natural laws are concerned. I've decided I don't think I'd like this universe. I don't think I'd like to live in the universe where beliefs are as, like, you can just believe a thing into existence. I don't know that I'd like that.
That'd be a little dangerous.
Yeah.
I think. I think you need to have rules of a universe, laws, that things you know to be true. It would be like being on that away planet that everything you think is going to happen.
Speaking of exercises, on the bridge, Sulu is exercising his ability to harness this magic power. And it's 1983, of course, so he conjures himself up a pretty lady.
But that woman soon turns into Lucian because he's like, what the fuck are y'all doing? Told you to keep it down. But apparently all this mental energy that they're using it can be traced, and that's going to alert the others. And he's like, you'll be found. And sure enough, a voice comes over and it says, you have been found. And it's another Megan.
Yeah, here's another example of the great artistry of the animated series, because what we get is this, it's beautiful, but it's also kind of creepy, this stream of colors moving across the screen with various faces mixed into it, and it's like overlaid against Kirk, Spock, and Sulu. And the voice of this Megan is George Takei.
I know. I was like, hey, I know that voice.
And he's like, you evil fuckers came here to spread your evil? And the voice talks about how this time it is the humans who shall suffer. The humans, and also Lucian, of course. You'll all pay. Oh my.
Oh my.
So what the hell happened all those millennia ago when the mega people visited Earth?
Because they hate the humans, and Lucian is the only one who has any sort of affinity for them. So this Megan sends the Enterprise towards the planet, falling, and then they show the ship splitting in two and exploding. We're about to find out.
Then the crew suddenly find themselves in stocks on that old Western set from Star Trek, the original series. But this time there's a sign that reads Salem, Massachusetts. So maybe we're about to get a history lesson. This episode is not what if humans thought were gods were actually aliens. It's what if what humans thought were witches were actually aliens.
And what do we do with witches?
We burn them.
We burn witches.
The stocks have been rearranged in a kind of U shape, like a meeting space. And in the middle is a pentagram on the floor. And Kirk and Spock work out that they're in 1691 Massachusetts as a Puritan man stands in the middle and calls the trial to order. We are indeed treated to some history here. The Megans visited Earth and tried to use their powers to help humans, but the greedy fucks tried to take advantage of their abilities, because that's what we do. And when the Megans refused to serve them, they were called devils, warlocks, and evil sorcerers, and everyone was told to fear them. And in return, they were indeed the witches burned in humanity's past. So they all gathered outside of town for one big Magic the Gathering.
This is what this is.
And they combined their powers to return to Megas 2. And they locked the door behind them, again, like a Bugs Bunny cartoon with like the 17 deadbolts and chains and shit. And they locked the door and they never talked to anybody again.
No, the guy that's talking, who is voiced by George Takei, his name is Asmodeus, which is another word for the devil or Satan, which I thought was interesting. Asmodeus, do you know that song?
No.
Beelzebub.
Asmodeus, Satanas, Lucifer.
Oh, yes. Yes, you do.
Lucifer. Yes.
Yeah, you've sent it to me before with the cats.
Yes.
Yeah. So this fear has been cooking for a long, long time, and they're afraid that if one Earth ship was able to get here and find them, others will come too. Still, the trial begins. Asmodeus says they've never had to hurt anyone before, and they don't want to now. And he asks who will speak in defense of Earth. And Spock raises his hand, and he's like, if you'll note my bowl cut and pointy ears, I am not one of these fuckers. If you would be so kind as to release me from these stocks, whatever you got with them is with them, not me.
Yeah, I ain't got nothing to do with this. But no, he says he will speak on that. And it makes sense. You know, he's not from Earth, so he's not necessarily, wouldn't be seen as biased.
Right. So Spock starts calling witnesses. First, Lucien, and he asks Lucien why he seems to be the only Megan that doesn't fear or hate humans. And Lucien explains that he kind of sees a lot of himself in humanity. Megans are solitary individual specialists. Humans are much more communal and sharing. Next witness, this is TAS, no time to fuck around with cross-examinations or anything. We don't have time for that. So James T. Kirk takes the stand, and Spock asks him if he believes humans have changed for the better since the days of Salem. And Kirk's line here is great. He says, I think we've been trying to change. Humans have their faults, greed, envy, panicky fear. But in the centuries since the Salem witch trials, we've learned. We try to understand and respect all life forms, except those flying pancake ones. We genocided the fuck out of those ones.
In an effort to elaborate, he says, you know, you have access to our records on the Enterprise. All of the history of Earth is at your disposal. And then he talks about General Order Number 1, which is sort of like the Prime Directive.
The Prime Directive. How often have you broken it?
See, the Prime Directive has many different functions.
The Prime Directive?
It is more what you call guidelines than actual rules.
It's a very interesting proposition. I can see it all.
Where none of their starships can interfere with the normal development of an alien society. And then he's like, look at that. You know, is that the Earth that you knew?
Asmodeus says, enough. Here's your history and your records. And talk about a thing not aging well. There are like reels of tape and old mainframe punch cards flying around the screen. Around. Yeah, like if this had been made in the 90s, it'd be floppy disks and cassette tapes.
True.
Apparently, this 3-second pause is the time needed for all the Megans to assimilate all that history and new information, because Jimmy, the head Megan, speaks again, saying, they now understand that the humans' trespass into this place was just an accident, so it's not likely to happen again. But we still have to punish Lucien, and his punishment will be to be confined in limbo for eternity, to live only with himself.
So cruel. And Kirk feels like to do that to someone like Lucien would be as bad as sentencing him to death.
Again, we're a social species, and this guy seems to be more like us than his own people.
But then the Megan says, don't you realize, though, who he is? He's the devil. He's Lucifer. He's the tempter, the trickster, the rollicker, the names that humans have given to Lucifer or Satan.
And Kirk's like, yeah, we abandoned all the old dusty Bronze Age books and shit a long time ago. He's a living being, an intelligent life form, and that's all that matters to us. And we will not join you in harming him. Well, that just kicks off a big old Star Trek magic fight.
Yeah.
Kirk pulls his sword from his back by the power of Grayskull or whatever.
No, it's by Grafthor's hammer.
They start licking magic shots back and forth at each other.
And Kirk is like learning how to use his magic. And Megan lights him on fire. He creates a rainstorm to put the fire out. It's hilarious.
Asmodeus says there's no way he can defeat an entire planet by himself. We've got you outnumbered. And Kirk says he has to try, or the Megans will become as bad as the Earthmen they fear. He says, you're acting out of terror instead of thought or respect. And again, like we say so often, the way Star Trek is so timeless in its commentary on the human condition. If you look at a lot of the things that are happening in the world today, a lot of the things being done are being done out of fear.
Oh, yeah.
Rather than thought. Razzmatazz! The Enterprise is back in orbit and everything's just fine.
And the Megan was saying, the head Megan was saying, you were prepared to die for Lucian.
Asmodeus says, by sparing your helpless enemy, who surely would have destroyed you, you demonstrated the advanced trait of mercy, something we hardly expected. Wait, no, that's the wrong episode. He says, you were prepared to die for Lucian, a being alien to you. It was a test.
Ah! That whole trial and all that bullshit was just a show, I guess. But yeah, it was a complete test, and they had to have proof that mankind had grown and learned wisdom since they last saw them.
And it was Kirk's compassion that was the proof enough for them. So much so that the Megans think they would be all right if other Earth ships were to come visit.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Nah.
I think we just need to like stay away from each other.
This seems to be happening a lot, though, like because at the end of the episode, because this is the animated series, everything has to be happy and resolved and we move along. And so like, and they all live happily ever after. Nah, I don't think so. I think at the end of this episode, Kirk says, we are very sorry to have trespassed into your space and we will not be back.
And we will not report this to Federation because if they do, they're going to want to send someone else, some other ships.
I'm just going to drop a buoy on my way out that says,
do not go here.
Don't come in. Yeah.
That's what should happen. But everybody's, like you said, everything's all hunky-dory. And they're drinking. Lucian's conjured up some beer mugs and they're toasting to their new friendship.
The button on the episode as the Enterprise speeds away from the planet. McCoy is happy to leave the magic behind, and he asks Kirk if he thinks Lucian really was the demon some people called Lucifer. Kirk doesn't seem to care. But Spock remarks that if it is the same being, then this marks the second time Lucian was cast out, and thanks to Kirk, the first time he was saved.
Boy, I'm sure glad that's over with.
I'm happy the affair is over.
Me too!
A most annoying, emotional episode.
Yeah, but you know, I learned something today.
When dreams become more important than reality, you give up travel, building, creating.
One jealous god, if all this makes a god.
By sparing your helpless enemy, who surely would have destroyed you, you demonstrated the advanced trait of mercy.
Frankly, I was rather dismayed by your use of the term half-breed. You must admit, it is an unsophisticated expression.
Ooh, interesting. A compassion for the devil.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know what I mean? The quote unquote, the devil, which is interesting.
Well, when you think about like people who claim Satanism as a religion,
Mm-hmm.
you know, obviously neither of there's two camps and they hate each other, and neither of them believe in a literal Satan, right? But it is that Satan represents something, and the representation of that is a questioning of authority and an independence of self and things like that, self-direction.
When I was growing up, I'm like, is the devil that bad? Because he's punished. You're being punished for doing something bad. So maybe he's not, like, he's the one punishing you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, 'cause they're like, you're going to go to hell because
Where this
you've
guy
done
who
something
really
bad.
loves bad people hangs out.
Right.
And he's going to punish me? Okay. Yeah,
Well,
no.
I mean, it just didn't make any sense, but to me when I was a kid. But
Okay, here's what I like about this episode. And we touched on it as we went through it. But this episode is about fear as a motivator, right? Earth people turned on the Megans, called them witches, feared and killed them. And when the Megans came back home, they became the same way about humans and all other aliens for that matter. Again, like a xenophobia. They came home, they shut their door, pulled all their blinds, and said, we don't want to go outside ever again.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that just speaks to humanity's proclivity to withdraw into ourselves as individuals, but also like how that affects societies. Like, yeah, when we put ourselves out there, we're going to find some shitty people. It's like dating. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't date. That doesn't mean we should lock our doors and pull the blinds and hide from the world. Like, yeah, maybe some people who migrate from one country to another, for example, aren't great people. Maybe some of them are criminals, but you shouldn't.
Not all of them are, because they're only coming to make a better life, if you think about it.
And you shouldn't build a wall and put Bugs Bunny levels of door locks on the door and never let anyone else through the door ever again.
Right.
And yet, like, in a lot of the things that we do today as humans, a lot of it is just a fear-based response. And I know we've talked about this before too. There was a great book that I read and we were going to interview, and it just on my old podcast, and it just didn't work out. But it was a scientific study that had been done between politically left and politically right people, and what their motivation, what motivates them, what causes physiological responses. And so they showed them images. Some of them were like happy children and fields of flowers and shit like that. And then other ones were like guns and scary, angry things. And they can, they hook you up to all kinds of shit.
They see your brain light up.
Yeah, they can read all that stuff. And the people who self-defined as conservative, politically conservative, had a stronger response to the more fear imagery than the happy, clappy stuff. And so,
interesting.
What they came away from that study was like, maybe half of us ish are just
driven
wired to be motivated. Yeah, and that's just how they are. And that's not to say that that's good or bad, but it's to say, now here's the thing we understand better. So how do we, as people on the left, how do we've got to meet in the middle? You remember it back in the, and I didn't intend for this to go political at all, but you remember when
we are.
When I was a kid, Republicans and Democrats kind of wanted the same thing, but they had different ways of going about it. And there were things that we agreed on that we could work together on, a lot of bipartisanship when I was a kid. And now it is not that at all. That is gone.
It is the exact opposite. It is more burn the other side, kill them all. It is vitriolic.
The Biden administration had a immigration proposal that I didn't like. It went farther than I would have gone. And it checked a lot of boxes that the Republicans wanted in an immigration policy. And the Republicans said, we're going to vote against that because Donald Trump said we shouldn't give Biden a win. This is scary times right now, guys.
It is. And now it's not even about the actual politics anymore. It is pedantic stuff. It
My
is just
team,
because
your
I don't
team.
want my team, your team.
Yeah.
It isn't even about the people anymore. And unless we get back to that, the whole world is going to go to hell.
So here's what the humanism that I would put into the universe or the galaxy, depending on which
Middle of the galaxy. I don't know.
Is that those of us who are not motivated by fear, we have to leverage our own compassion somehow for the people who are. And and understand that they just come from a different place than we do. They're coming at this from a completely different reality. Like, we really do live in two different realities, which is bonkers. But I also want us all to think, examine your own deeply held beliefs, whatever they may be, and ask yourself, because you may have never asked yourself, where does this belief of mine come from? It may have been something you were taught as a kid and you just never questioned it because we're not supposed to question authority. It may come from somebody wound you up with the fear of what to continue the analogy, these people are coming here to turk your gerbs.
They took our jibs.
They took your jib. They took your jib. Took your jib.
Turking our
They're
derb.
turk our gerbs, and they're criminals, and they're MS-13, and they're all this bullshit, and they wind up all of this scary fear stuff that motivates you to go help them stay in power or get power or whatever. And I think we all just need to examine our beliefs and think about, where do they come from? Do I hold this belief because is it a fear-based response? Or is there
something
reason?
valid?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there a valid reason that you are treating an immigrant terribly? Do you actually have any proof that the things that you're afraid of are actually happening?
Right.
Or is it just the fact that you're so afraid of what might happen because somebody told you that's, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm,
I think we all should re-examine everything. Anytime you're afraid of something, just sit down and say, why am I afraid of this?
Mm-hmm.
Just doing something, an everyday thing, or some big issue like immigration or something.
Yeah.
And be honest with yourself.
Sending Lucian to live in limbo. This reflected to me the idea of like the outcast, right? Think of tribal communities, right? Where the community offers a safety and comfort in exchange for following the rules. And if you don't follow the rules, we send you out into the forest to think about what you've done.
Prison, sort of.
Yeah.
You're separated from the rest of the...
Right.
Yeah.
And this may function as a protection for the community, right? We did that as people to protect everyone else, to get rid of that guy and put him in jail because he's doing bad shit. But it's at the expense of that person, and that's still a person.
But they rationalize, we didn't kill him.
Right.
We're not going to kill you. We're just going to...
Although in some places we do that too.
Make you wish you were dead. Yeah.
Yeah. But it uses fear and punishment to change behavior, which we know only works on a surface level, right? It's the old, I hit my kids and they turned out fine, and my pappy hit me and I turned out fine. Well, no, you probably didn't actually, but it may have worked to change the behavior, but did that create a
created a fear?
Yeah. Did that create a person who is motivated and responds to fear?
Yeah. Because now everyone's afraid of doing what Lucian did, whatever. And so they're all living in fear. You know what I mean? It comes back to the community. The fear is now instilled in the community. I mean, some fear is healthy.
Yes.
But
when you look at fear from the perspective of, and I think we've talked about this before too, the idea of, again, we're out on the Serengeti and there's a rustle in the wind and the bush over there moves. Is that the wind, or is there a fucking lion back behind that bush that's going to fucking kill and eat me?
Well, a white person would be like, let's go see what it is. I'll be out of there.
And then shoot it.
Right. Or yeah. Let's go see what it is. Let's see if we can shoot it.
So, but there's a balance to that because it may have just been the wind and there's berries in that bush that we really need to survive.
Mm-hmm.
So there's trade-offs to those kinds of situations.
Yeah.
If you let fear drive you all the time, you never get the berries. You never go into the bushes because you're always afraid of the big bad monster that might be there, but that you may not have good evidence for.
And maybe it's there, but you don't need to be afraid of it.
Right.
Maybe it's just there to get berries too.
Yeah. Yes. I feel like they tried to tie the bow at the end of this episode to say, maybe you can get through to people who are governed by fear with a little compassion. And that speaks very loudly to me, again, when I look at the political divide in this country and the world. I mean,
it's the world.
It's everywhere right now. There is absolutely one so-called wing of the so-called bird that is absolutely driven by fear. And I think those of us on the other wing just don't know how to get through to them at all. And maybe it's compassion.
Yeah. And maybe we have to let go of our own fear of them too.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the anger, because a lot of us would just write these people off. Oh, they're stupid. They're this, they're that. And that's not good either.
I have said, and I will admit this right now, I have said very tongue-in-cheek, very comedically, that if they want the South so fucking bad, let's just move everybody that wants to be in the South. They just build a wall on the Mason-Dixon line. I'll help pay for it. I'm fine with that. You can have the swamp-ass South, and the rest of us are going to build a socialist utopia in the North. And I say that in jest, because then we would have to be neighboring countries with these people, right? So it's not like you can just move them out of your house and the problem is gone. We live on Starship Earth, right? We are all on this planet together, and our actions affect everyone on the planet. And so it's not as simple.
Yeah, and it's not just moving someone across the border, because we're global. I mean, with everything that we have now, technology, everything is global, and just moving someone away physically is not enough.
No. And move them away is the wrong approach, and I acknowledge that. Again, I say it for comedy.
I mean,
right?
We know.
We have to figure out how to live together on this world, like with people whose ideas are very different from ours. So then the questions become, what's changing? Because we used to seem to be able to get along kind of pretty well.
Or did we?
For pieces of time, maybe? Yeah. Or did we?
Or did we? Because right now, because we have so much media and we know everything that's going on, or we think we know, it's being reported, it's always in our face. Maybe it's always been shitty. Like we've always had trouble getting along, but it's just now more in our face.
Yeah.
And it just seems like everywhere.
I agree. And I think it's just the temperature is reaching boiling at a rapid pace. And what do we do? We've got to turn the car around somehow. And not turn the car around back to the 1950s. We're not going back. That's the other thing. So I say so-called left and right wings of the so-called bird because, and I don't remember where I heard this now, but if I were running the Democratic Party, first of all, I get polls all the time. I'm surveyed a lot, and a lot of times they'll ask you, how do you identify politically? And it's Democrat, Republican, Independent, Other. And I always select Other and write in Progressive. And then the next question is, well, which of the parties is more closely aligned to your values? And the answer is Democrat. But I don't identify as a Democrat. It's not a strong, like a lot of conservatives have. Republican is a very strong part of their identity. And I don't have that with any political party. Again, it's the values to me, and the Democrats don't hit them all for me. They don't go far enough. And if I were leading either the Democratic Party or what should be a progressive third party, I would be rebranding this whole conversation about left and right to forward and backward. There is a party, there is a political party that wants to take us backward, and there is another who wants to move forward. Which do you want? And that's really what we're choosing between. Do you want to go back to the good old days in the 1950s with the sock hops and the soda fountains and the subjugated black people? Right. Is that what you want? And a lot of people do.
And yes, I was going to say, there are a lot of people who would say yes to that question.
Yeah.
Women knew their place.
Yeah.
They had no reproductive rights. LGBTQ, you couldn't live freely. Everything was controlled. There was 10 commandments in school and prayer and bullshit. And yeah, and
those were the good old days.
That they want.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Again, everybody go research Project 2025. It's coming. This is what they want. They wrote a playbook about it. I had an interaction like this in the wild. So my daughter did a theater camp this past week. We should have talked about that at the open of the show. Whatever, we'll talk about it now. So she did a theater camp. She's absolutely hooked. Thanks to everyone who donated to help make that happen. So it was a week-long day camp, not a sleepover camp or anything, right? So they went Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 8 to noonish, whatever. And then on 1 o'clock on Friday, they had a performance. And we came in and we were in the second row, and in front of us was a boomer in the wild. And we had the neighbor's kid with us because they go to school together, right? So she was there to support her friend. And she was making some weird noises like kids do, just being fucking weird, which we embrace in this household. And
the neighbor kid,
yeah. And this lady in front of us turned around and said some shit. And I don't normally say anything, but she's just being rude or something like that. And Becca's like, what are you talking about rude? This is a child being a child. They make noises. Yeah. And it struck me as like, no, this woman wants this child to sit down, shut up, be seen and not heard. Boy, am I glad we're moving away from that.
That's what we're taught.
I don't want that world.
Yeah.
This is the forward. I'm going away from that shit because it wasn't helpful. It wasn't healthy. We know now from a mental health perspective, that is terrible for children.
Yeah, but not everybody knows it. Like, you know what I mean? It's now mental health is.
And I should say, I understand that it's harder for older folks to, get over their shit and get on the bus because deep-seated beliefs and understandings are really hard to overcome. I do understand that. But to snark at a complete fucking stranger,
a baby.
Child.
That's a baby. Because I call them babies. Anybody under 10, that's a baby.
Yeah.
They're babies.
Anyway. Anybody die in this episode?
Nope.
They're not killing anybody. They're
not killing anyone. I'm saving up all the mad bars for TNG, I guess.
I can't wait till you write some bars for Tasha Yar. Oh, I'm sorry. Spoiler alert. Did I say that out loud?
Oh, everyone knows by now with all the memes.
Maybe.
Let's get right to business.
Fine, I'm authorized to pay an equitable price.
Federation has invested a great deal of money in our training. They're about due for a small return.
Listen, we pay our percentages. We're entitled to a little service for our money, huh?
Is this the way your citizens do business? Their right of petition?
They pay their percentages and the boss takes care of them.
Is there anything else?
Listeners of Humanist Trek at Tanagra, the podcast, it's humor in laughter. Dathon on the Patreon Sea.
Shaka, when the reviews fell. Kahlo, his pledge at Patreon.
Humanist Trek, their content wide. Darmok and Jalad at Patreon. Pledge with arms wide.
Mirab, with your support, your laughter, Temba, his arms open.
Our admirals at Patreon. Russell at the Race of Natara. Ali, her arms with fists open. Peter and Sarah at Lunga. Sherry with sails unfurled.
Patreon.com/humanisttrek, where laughter flows. So Koth, in joyous unity.
I assume you're loitering around here to learn what efficiency rating I plan to give your cadets.
Trainees, to the briefing room. Is that all you gotta say? What about my performance?
Aren't you dead?
I don't believe this was a fair test of my command abilities. There was no way to win.
There's no correct resolution. It's a test of character.
Now, what is that supposed to mean?
I am understandably curious.
May I ask you a question?
Who's been holding up the damn elevator?
Becca is back now with the answer to this week's Starfleet Academy Cadet Challenge for the Magicks of Magicks 2. Remind us again the question.
Credited writer for this episode, Larry Brody, had originally sent his script for the 3rd season of the original series, but producer Fred Freiberger rejected it. 3 years later, he pitched the same idea to Gene Roddenberry for this series. Roddenberry loved the idea and Brody's script, but according to Brody, what did he realize when the episode finally aired?
I could not be fucked to tell you what our answers were.
Sarah said his idea had been written and produced on the original series and he didn't get credit. Allie said it had already been done in a similar way on TOS.
Okay, and the answer was?
According to Brody, Roddenberry rewrote all of the dialogue. Brody has said he didn't even recognize it at all as his.
Incorrect.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
I was reading about the Walter Koenig episode where he had to rewrite it 12 times.
Jesus.
Yeah, so goodness, I guess that was just the norm.
Yeah, it seems like I've seen a lot of that where Gene has done a lot of this.
Well, Gene famously wrote lyrics to the Star Trek theme song and had them copyrighted so that even though they aren't in the final show, he is a co-writer of the Star Trek theme. And so he screwed Alexander Courage out of some royalty money is what happened there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Next week, we'll be reviewing Star Trek The Animated Series, Season 1, Episode 9, Once Upon a Planet. Upon returning to the amusement park planet, the Enterprise crew finds that the caretaker has died and the computer has taken over, creating havoc. Oh, is this the
Shore
bunny?
leave.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going back to the Alice in Wonderland planet. I have not seen this.
I actually have.
Okay.
I fell asleep watching it
because that's what you do.
I do.
Yeah.
I just leave it on. I watch the 2 episodes and then I just leave it on.
All right. What's our question for Once Upon a Planet?
What extremely rare for Star Trek safety mechanism is shown in this episode?
What? What extremely rare what?
You have to have a pass to go on the bridge. You have to have security clearance. That's the safety measure.
There's a safety mechanism shown that is not typically shown in Trek.
Mechanism.
A safety mechanism.
So this is the technology thing. Is it their belts again? Their magic belts? Their, what the fuck are those called? Their life support belts?
Yeah, life support belts.
A safety mechanism.
That is usually not shown in Trek?
Right.
What?
Their heaters are locked in a different place from their heater ammunition. I don't know.
Their heaters have a safety on. Well, no, they do have I don't know, safety mechanism. It's got to be something mechanical. What have we always complained about that they should do?
Lots of shit.
I know.
Maybe it's something to do with the transporter detecting other things in the stream when they beam you in. No, because No, I take it back, because that is like very, very common in later Trek.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember this episode. They did all beam down for shore leave. It might be something with the transporter though, but I don't know what. Yeah, I have no idea. I gotta say something though, right? Extremely rare safety mechanism.
She's really trying to read into the language.
I know,
of
no,
this.
I'm just trying to remember, like, what did extremely rare safety mechanism? I don't know. It's got to do something to do with the transporter, but I have no idea.
Something to do with the transporter.
Yeah, that's my answer. Something to do with the transporter.
Okay.
And what did you record for my answer?
Life support belt.
Those were in another episode too, though. So,
yeah, it was
so
in
it
the
could
first
be
one.
Right. So it could be that Becca's just like, because Becca's not watching along with us, so she might not know that this was already shown in an episode before. I don't know. Anyway, we're going to lose every time. And so if you'd like to lose with us, you know how to do that. Head over to your social media, share this episode, use the hashtag Starfleet Challenge, send us a text or a voicemail to 920-550-TREK, 920-550-8735. Call and leave us a message or send us a text. We'll pick out our winner. As of now, Anders is still our winner and our favorite listener. So you got to dethrone Anders at this point and play along with us. Next time on Humanist Trek, Star Trek The Animated Series, Season 1, Episode 9, Once Upon a Planet.
What the heck? What does she say?
What does who say?
What do I say? Me.
Diftor hek smusma.
That's it. Yeah. Diftor hech smusma.
Kapla.
Kapla. I don't know.
Kapla.
Oh my God. Get me out of here. Humanist Trek is available wherever you replicate your podcasts. Follow us on all the social medias at Humanist Trek. Become a patron at patreon.com/humanisttrek. Open hailing frequencies to podcast@humanisttrek.com and visit our website, humanisttrek.com. Humanist Trek is a production of Sarah Austin Media.